The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask really seems to be one of those games people either love or hate. The repetitive 3D mechanic, a mere 4 dungeons, and a controversial save system are all factors that turned a lot of people off about the game. And yet, they're all part of the reason why I love the original game so much. So, I was ecstatic to hear it was being remade for the 3DS, like Ocarina of Time before it. But, whereas Ocarina of Time 3D remained remarkably faithful to the original game, Majora's Mask 3D isn't afraid to switch some things up. And like the game itself, some of those changes might be somewhat divisive too. But one thing I think most people will agree on is the fact that this game looks fantastic. Everything from the character models, to the textures, to the draw distance have been given a massive upgrade. The world of Termina has never looked this good before. I mean, just look at that sunrise. And it's something I didn't fully appreciate until I went back to Majora's Mask on the Nintendo 64. I mean, it's a blurry mess, and it runs at a much lower frame rate too, as opposed to the 3DS's nearly rock solid 30 frames per second. In 3D, no less, which by the way, still looks just as great as it did back in Ocarina of Time 3D, although the luster has worn a little bit off since then. And speaking of Ocarina of Time 3D, its entire touchscreen interface is back, allowing you to easily swap between your items and masks much more easily than before. Although, I do wish they had gone even further with this idea and allowed you to keep your inventory on the touchscreen at all times, instead of defaulting back to the map each time, since you access it so often. Oh, and like before, all of your Ocarina songs can now be displayed while playing them, which is great for someone like me whose muscle memory of the original 64 version doesn't quite translate to the 3DS one. Okay, my memory kinda sucks too. Another notable change is a revamped save system. Before, you could only save by either creating a temporary save state at a predetermined location, or by creating a permanent save by restarting the 3-day cycle. But this time around, both of those are entirely gone. Instead, you can now permanently save at any time by checking in with one of the owl or new feather statues that litter the landscape, effectively creating a restore point you can go back to if you screw things up too badly. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people will like this change. Hell, even I didn't mind it as much as I thought I might, given that I was a huge fan of how the original game handled it. But with that said, it does remove some of that sense of finality that the original game had. After all, resetting the 3-day cycle loses just a little of its significance even though you can just undo the whole thing. Beyond that, the Bomber's Notebook, which is basically the Google Calendar of Termina, has also undergone some serious changes. Mostly in that it's actually useful this time around, but maybe just a little too useful. Whereas before, it would only track a select few people, it now keeps track of practically every character involved in any kind of quest. It's pretty exhaustive, and it works super well in helping you keep track of which quests you're currently working on, even allowing you to set an alarm to remind you to do something at a specific time. But conversely, it also makes the world feel just a little less organic than before, with every major character now essentially just being another checkbox in your list. It also felt just a little too overbearing at times, a little bit like a helicopter parent. For example, and this is a very slight spoiler, at one point in the game you find a nice juicy slab of meat, which is an essential part of one of your quests. Now in the original game, it was entirely on you to figure out or remember what to do with it. But in the remake, the game pops up an instant reminder telling you exactly who to take it to. Now some people may find this to be a huge help, but I felt like it was holding my hand just a little bit too often, taking away some of the reward for having figured out something for myself. And along those same lines, another odd change comes in the form of the ice arrow. Before, you could launch it at any body of water and instantly create a solid platform that you could jump to. But now, you can only shoot at predetermined points that sparkle in the water. It kinda dumps down some of the puzzles while also making the game feel a lot more restrictive. Moving on, the controls for each of Link's 3 main transformations have all been changed to some degree too. Now for the most part it's not a big deal, but Zora Link is the one who's affected the most, with him now swimming slower, but now being easier to control. Unfortunately, it also takes away one of the more joyful elements of the original game, which was being able to swim around like a dolphin. Okay, I should clarify that's not gone entirely, but if you want to do it now, you're gonna have to use some magic. Now so far, all of the changes I've mentioned have been mostly related to the presentation or interface, but the core gameplay has also seen a few changes and additions too. For instance, you'll now find a new pair of fishing holes in Termina, which allows for a nice change of pace from the whole saving the world from imminent destruction thing. Another big change is that you now have the ability to skip ahead at any moment in time, down to the exact minute. And it's pretty convenient, although I can't help but feel it undermines some of the intent of the original game, where you're encouraged to go off and explore while waiting for an event, instead of skipping directly to it. So it should be pretty clear by now that Majora's Mask has seen quite a few changes, some for the better, while others are a little bit more debatable. But one thing I haven't yet talked about is the core Majora's Mask experience itself, and if it still holds up, and I'm happy to say it totally does. The world itself is still one of the richest and most atmospheric of any Zelda game. I mean, you can feel the sense of dread in the air by the time day 3 rolls around and the clock's ticking down the final few hours. Although, I will say that I found the temples to be a little bit more annoying than I remember, with some of them featuring confusing layouts, and others requiring oddly precise footwork. Yeah, if you fall off here, you have to climb all the way back up to the top. It's not terribly fun, but hey, there's only 4 temples this time around. Oh, and the bosses have also been tweaked a bit too, making their weak points a little more obvious. and one boss in particular got a pretty massive overhaul for the better. But temples aside, Majora's Mask holds up remarkably well. It looks fantastic, the touchscreen inventory is super handy, and most of the new additions will make the game more accessible to those who passed it up originally. But, as one who didn't pass it up originally, I can't help but feel a little bit disappointed by some of those changes. I mean, any one of them individually isn't that big of a deal, but taken all together, I can't help but feel they chip away at the core experience that the original game provided me with. But as I said before, Majora's Mask was a very divisive game, and it's hard to knock a game for trying to be more accessible. So, as one who loved the original Majora's Mask, I ended up liking Majora's Mask 3D a lot. Although I may not be a huge fan of every change, none of them take that much away from the core experience. And yeah, it probably will improve it for most people who aren't me. And even I'll admit, it's going to be extremely hard going back to the Nintendo 64 version after seeing how beautiful this remake is. Particularly as it really does run a lot smoother. Alright, thanks for watching. Make sure to stay tuned to GameXplain.com for more on Majora's Mask 3D and other things gaming too.